I would like to welcome you all tonight, and especially Hugh Van Es, who is gracing us with her presence. This is an unusual event because we don't usually have club events to mark the anniversary of a photograph being taken. But this is not.
Good idea.
It is a good idea, yeah. But this is not any photograph, as we all know. Hugh Van Es was a member of a generation of photojournalists who covered Vietnam and who in many ways defined the character of the Foreign Correspondents Club in Vietnam. And Hugh took this photograph, which was one of the defining images of the Vietnam War. The thing that's always struck me about this image, we can look around the room and it's full of terrible images of death, destruction, suffering, and nobody's actually dying in this image. But it symbolizes, it just captures the fear and the futility of war in many ways. And it became an iconic image of the Vietnam War and of war in general. So we felt that it was sufficiently important that we should mark the anniversary. So I'm not going to go on too long. I'm just going to say a few words about the history of the photograph, and then I'm going to ask Annie to say a few words. So at 2:30 on April the 29th, 1975, Hugh Van Es took this photograph. The Americans had given the order of the evacuation of Saigon that morning, and Hugh had been out taking photographs of the chaos. And later he would say he thinks some of the pictures he took that morning were better than this one. And he was back in the UPI office, which was in what was called the Peninsula Hotel in Saigon at lunchtime, maybe not like the Peninsula Hotel in Hong Kong, when Bert Oakley of Bert's bar, who was a staff member of UPI, told him there was a helicopter on the roof of an apartment building. Oops, I'm getting feedback. About, how did you do that? About 4 blocks away. Hugh grabbed a 300mm lens, which was the longest one he had in the office, and he ran onto the roof and on the balcony. It's always good to have a sub-editor. You know?
Who knows what he's talking about?
I could have said who rattled his cage, but I'm polite. You know? And I thought you weren't going to say anything, Rob.
That's all he's going to say.
And anyway, he went onto the balcony and he took this photograph of an Air America helicopter on the roof of an apartment building. It was called the Pittman Apartment, and it was a building used by the CIA. And he spotted there was about 2 or 3 dozen people trying to get onto this helicopter, which had a capacity for 8. Finally, it took off with about 12 or 14 people on board. And I'm not sure if this is the actual camera, Robin, but it's the model. It's the model case. Is this the actual camera, or is it
top secret information?
CIA.
Hard currency.
If he told you he was, if he told us he would have to kill us all, right?
One thing I know for sure, the lens is not a lens because that was a 300mm in the office and it was not his personal one. The camera can be the one, and he had 2 of those, and one of them was the camera. So.
But the archival evidence is not solid.
And also, that was not the last helicopter off the top of that building.
Probably not.
No, that was the regular flight.
Although actually,
I differ. I beg to
Yes.
differ. It might have been the last. It was not the last helicopter out of Vietnam, but it might have been the last helicopter out of that roof.
well, in Hugh's account, what does he know? He only.
What do you know? It's only there.
I mean, Robin knows. Hugh's account in the New York Times 10 years ago was that the people, after that helicopter took off, waited, and no other helicopter came back to get them. But I mean, That's what, if you read the article,
More than one.
there's a link, there's actually a link on the, on the.
I made a
on the
copy.
flyer. Oh, she made a copy, right, okay. I'm beginning to wonder if you, do you Photoshop your pictures, Robert, you know?
Only for World Press.
Anyway,
Everybody's arguing.
isn't a stand-up. How's that?
Is that better?
The mic's full.
How's that? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, I should stop moving around. Okay, I'll just stand. Okay.
Very full.
Hugh shot 10 frames, and he waited till about 5 o'clock at night, and he filed to the Tokyo bureau through the telegraph office in Saigon. He said it took about 12 minutes in these days to transmit a 5 by 7 inch photograph with a short photo caption. And it was at that moment that history was rewritten, because the photo desk in Tokyo sent the photograph out with a caption saying it was a helicopter evacuation from the roof of the American embassy in Saigon, because that was the evacuation point. And Hugh said that over the years, he kind of tried to tell people that it was actually from an apartment building, but he said he finally gave up. It was all part of the legend.
No, he said, fuck it.
I like him. He's a funny guy.
I'm just a bit done, actually. If it hadn't been for Robin Moya, this would have been a lot shorter. So, you know, what can you say? I mean, it's just an iconic photograph of war, of any war, since the history of war photography in the mid-19th century. I mean, and it was a privilege to have met Hugh. I met Hugh in 1996, and I think I saw him maybe the night before he died, and there. And it was bizarre. For weeks afterwards, I just kept catching in the corner of my eye, Hugh. It was probably somebody in a red polo shirt or the khaki photographer's vest, but his spirit's still here, Annie, and you know, he was such a part of our lives. So I think it's appropriate that we honour him tonight. The bad news was I think he made about $100 US out of this picture, right? And Hugh being Hugh never really insisted on it over the years. This was before the photographers had the sort of copyright that they deserve now. But no, just let me finish, please. I asked, you can speak after, okay. So I think the important thing was that, you know, despite the fact he didn't make any money out of it, and it wasn't his best photograph, according to Hugh, it really guaranteed his place in history, which is something I don't think you can put any value on. So it was an honour to know him. I think it's good to mark the anniversary of this photograph. I think we should have a toast in a minute or two, but first of all, I was going to ask Annie to speak first, but I think I'll pass the microphone to
Please, I'm not
Robin.
prepared.
What did you want to say, Robin?
No, I just wanted to say that though Hugh was only paid by UPI a small amount of money, Time magazine, on the advice of Arnold Drefkin, our picture chief, always paid Hugh space rates whenever the picture was used, including for the cover over here, etc., etc. So he probably made a couple of bucks over the years.
Is that really it? Annie, it's over to you, but if he says anything, just kick him, okay?
Yeah. Oh, he knows me. Sorry. No, I don't know. I haven't prepared any speech or anything. But I am actually quite overwhelmed at seeing the numbers here, and we thought it's going to be a very small gathering of old folks and people who remember to you. But as we speak, actually, there are about 25 to 30 of Hugh surviving colleagues in Vietnam doing the same thing, having a drink and talking about, you know, embellishing things and talking about that day in particular. First, what I should say was that no, Hugh actually, which Eric mentioned, that he actually took a lot more pictures than that one. A lot of very good pictures that he himself would have preferred to be used, and they were used, but they were fortunately or unfortunately overshadowed by this one particular picture. In fact, the impact was so great that UPI actually made an ad campaign over it, and a poster, and I brought it over here. I made a copy of it, and I brought it over here to show, which nobody has seen. A lot of accolades have been paid to Hugh on not just that helicopter picture, but also other pictures. But again, it was sort of obscured by the helicopter picture. I also brought along the picture of the actual pilot of the helicopter, which is and don't let anybody steal that one, because that's the only print I have. And I say that aiming Terry and Robin, who lost my last picture.
We love you, Robin.
Okay. What to say? Okay. I should really maybe briefly add that Hugh was not a one-picture man. He covered the Vietnam and Cambodia War for 8 years, so naturally he had a lot of very impressive graphic, dynamic pictures that were used very, very widely used during that time. But again, unfortunately, he was working for AP and UPI, and that was before the copyright law that came out in 1976. He did not own the property of those pictures, and they remain in the AP and UPI archives. Of course, UPI is now, the pictures of the old UPI pictures and now belong to Bill Gates' Corbis archives. And also after the war, he went on to a lot more other conflict and non-conflict campaigns. I just want to say he's not a one-picture man. That's it. Thank you for being here.
Anything to add, Robin? You okay? Where's Bob? Where's Bob? Could you somebody hold that one? This is quite interesting. This was a photograph on Bob of Hugh with a toy helicopter, and that is the actual building.
Do you see what a toy helicopter is made of? Have you looked at it?
Beer cans.
Heineken beer.
Did you make that one, Hugh?
Actually, an ad for Heineken, but we never got paid for it.
Anybody else like to say anything or case?
One last little thing to add. No, it's very simple. Okay.
Stand up.
Just to add, everybody knows this picture in black and white, but it's also in color. And if you go to the Corbis website, just type in corbis.com or something, and you type in Van Es Saigon, you get all the different versions. So there's actually a number of different black and white versions, and there's a number of different color versions. And you can also see they're uncropped, so they're wider, bigger zones. So there you can see that there's a bit more to it. And maybe the very last thing, I think when you talk about icons, it became more like an icon of an exit of a war. Remember all the cartoons being made through the last decades? Any war America had to leave, there was another helicopter shot on the roof. Iraq, all kinds of places. So it's very iconic for exit, quick exit for a big country, I think. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Chris Lotte has something to show.
Chris?
Can you get it hooked up?
I find myself getting strangely emotional, as I always do when I look at this video. The guys here, so I'll tell you the story behind this, and I promise I'm not going to cry. You can't make me cry. I did the last, over the years, this picture has taken on a life of its own, as I think everyone has acknowledged. And did a documentary on Dutch television about him. Herder featured him in a film that would be made about the FCC called All the Gin Joints. in which, if you can get a copy of it, he gives you the complete recipe for a bull shot, which is pretty fantastic. But I did the last interview with Hugh for a little piece on the History Channel, and we did it a couple of weeks before he died. And it was specifically about this fucking picture, as he called it, that fucking picture. And if we can get it hooked up, we'll play it. We didn't play it at the time that he died because the History Channel were assholes. I'm sorry, did I say that? No. They're clients of mine, they're still clients of mine, I'm still good friends with them, and I would still say if there was somebody from the History Channel here, they were assholes. They bought the film, and they had all the rights for it, and they had not aired it yet, so they wouldn't let us play it at his wake, and they wouldn't let us put it up on a website, they wouldn't let us do anything with it. I've got the print that we sent them, and I'll play it for you now, and to hell with copyright, but it's going to take a minute to get it stitched up. And in it you'll see, it's actually great to hear Hugh talk about the picture, and to hear him talk about his experience, and him talk about the conditions of it and all the rest of it. And if you take a picture of the screen, I'll kill you, because then we'll get in trouble.
But you don't want them. While we wait for it to be hooked up, as we're talking about photographs, let's get everybody to stand up and let's get a photograph of everybody here on our view.
How can you?
Oh, there you go. And again.
All right, I'm going to
One
stand
more.
here with Mark. Okay. You see me?
Cat for the dough.
Fall over, fall over.
It's a bit of a crowded room, but it's lovely to see so many people.
Should give us the applause.
Okay, one last one.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.